It's rubber. That's not a nice thing to have on your wrist, is it?
It is. It doesn't even...
I do not want to sniff your watch strap.
It's all the way along.
He's trying to make me sniff his watch strap. There's something wrong with this bloke.
Welcome to another episode of Boat Nuts, the podcast about all things boaty. This is Boat Nut number 1, Hugo Andre, editor of Motorboat and Yachting magazine, and I'm Alex Smith, Boat Nut number 2, deputy editor of that same magazine. So Hugo, where are we today?
We are down at Swanwick Marina on board a rather lovely Azimut Magellano 60. Now, this particular boat retails for 2.7 million, but this example here is currently for sale at 2.15 million, so a little bit of a bargain there.
Yeah, it is. I tested this very boat actually in Italy, and at the outset I kind of had the feeling that maybe those kind of retro vibes had the potential to feel a bit twee, but it's anything but, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think it's a really good example of its breed. It's a sort of modern trawler yacht with an attractive sort of contemporary interior, but all the robustness and long-range cruising that you'd expect of a typical trawler yacht.
Yeah, and that's particularly relevant because we're discussing adventure boats today as our issue of the day.
We absolutely are.
But before we get to that, we've got our boat of the day, usually our boat of the day, but today, because of the Cannes Yachting Festival, we're picking our favourite boats of the show, and there's plenty of those.
Absolutely, has to. There's no way we can fit it all into one boat. We're going to have to talk about 3 or 4 at least, I would think.
Exactly that. Then our product of the day is going to be watches, marine watches, and I know you've got plenty of those.
I've got a few of them. I'm not a sort of major watch collector, but I do like a useful, practical, waterproof piece of kit. And I think we're both wearing some fairly chunky ones here. So hopefully we've got 1 or 2 interesting things to say about them.
Yeah, I think so. And then finally, the issue we described, the adventure yacht sector. There are all kinds of boats entering the market, calling themselves adventure boats. So what exactly does that mean? We're going to try to tidy that up for you, aren't we?
Yeah, hopefully we can provide a little bit of a definition of what an adventure boat actually is and give some examples of the different kinds there are out there.
Yeah, I think we might struggle a bit, but let's pop inside and find out, eh?
Going to be a hard one to pin down, but we can certainly have a go.
All right, let's do it. Our boat of the day then, well, it's a bit more exciting than just a boat of the day, because we're going to be talking about the best boats at the Cannes Yachting Festival, which for me, I think, notwithstanding the fact that Dusseldorf is a massive event, I think Cannes Yachting Festival is the best boat show in Europe.
Oh, it's by miles the most important in terms of new product launches. I think I saw that there were over 140 world premieres at that show alone. Yeah. And at Dusseldorf, you might get 10.
And at
Southampton, you're lucky if you got 1 or 2.
That's right. Yeah,
but 140
this year.
I mean, is the market big enough to accept that many new boats?
Oh, no, I suspect that a fair few of those are it's kind of a creative interpretation of what represents a proper launch. But at the same time, this year, there were a lot of exciting boats. I mean, I've got a short list of maybe... I could easily have had a short list of 10 I wanted to talk about, but maybe 4 or 5 that I'd like to mention. I'm certain you have too. So let's start off with should we start off with the Power Cat, because they're all the rage these days.
Yeah, plenty of them.
Aquila.
Yep.
No stranger to big, voluminous Power Cats. I'd look at their 46 yacht.
Brand new at the show, first time it's been seen anywhere.
Yeah, world debut, and I thought that was something else. I mean, we often say when you step aboard a boat of a nominal length, you'll be walking around and you'll forget that it's a 30-footer or a 40-footer. You'll suggest that maybe it feels like a lot more than that, but this is just night and day, different level to most 46-footers you're going to witness. Huge scale, full beam. Bow cabin, which is quite exciting.
Oh, that makes a massive difference on a cat, doesn't it?
It does, but on relatively compact cats, 46 foot is not huge.
No.
On relatively compact cats, you usually have to have either a full beam bow cabin or a kind of sunken bow lounge.
Yeah.
And on this boat, you get both. So really, it's not just about the volume, it's about the way they've used the deck. It's really quite ingenious. So basically what you have on this boat is, instead of a stairwell down into either hull on either side, kind of amidships, as you quite often get, and then one down
pretty
to the
much
bow
the
cabin.
norm.
Yeah. Well, ahead of the helm, you've got 3 sets of steps, one going down to either side, and a sort of half-height stairwell going forward. So you've got an intermediate sort of deck level up there in the bow. And that makes good sense, of course, because then you can elevate the bridge deck to a decent degree up there at the bow without dropping it too much.
And that is usually the flaw of catamarans that size, is because you've got two hulls. Each of the individual hulls is actually quite narrow. So usually the cabins you get, the bed fills up the entire width of the cabin, and they don't really feel as luxurious and spacious as you think they might from the outside.
Yeah, exactly that. So it is particularly pleasing the way they've done it here, because you get a lovely bow lounge, virtually full beam. It tapers a touch, of course, up there, but it's still huge. And yet you still get that full beam owner's cabin at the half height deck forward.
Is there full standing headroom in that cabin then?
There is, yeah. And because you've got sort of raised seating sections up there on the bow, and then in the leading edge of that moulding, you've got big, long, panoramic sort of letter slot windows. So you've got a view forward from that cabin as well, from the standing height, and plenty of light. And actually, it's quite interesting because if, in order to achieve all of this, well, as I say, they've got the intermediate sort of deck level for the bow cabin, but also they've got significant elevation as the structure moves forward. So the bow is quite
really
raised.
Tall and chunky?
Well, weirdly, no, it doesn't, because in raising the bow, as they have, in order to generate that space, they kind of counterbalance the elevation of the main body of the superstructure, because of course you've got a big old flybridge up there, obviously, from Aquila. You'd expect that, and as we've seen before from Aquila, you've got access to that flybridge from the bow space, which is lovely, and also another one back down to the cockpit, which is equally lovely. There's that much space, you can have a pair of stairwells, not really worry about it.
But then the usual flaw, or the potential flaw, with having a big deep bridging deck is of course the fact that you risk it impacting as the waves come between the hulls.
Yeah.
And that can give you a really hard ride.
It can, yeah.
What does it look like? Do you think is it high enough above the water level to impact it or not?
That's a great question. It's often the way at these shows, isn't it? The way it was displayed, you couldn't actually get to the bow. I couldn't really see.
You couldn't
down
see under
between,
to see how close it was to the waterline.
But the way they've elevated the bow and then used the sort of intermediate deck level for the bow cabin, it looks to me like they've probably engineered sufficient bridge deck height that you're not going to have those shuddering impacts, and you're going to have fewer of those moments where you get those salty cold puffs of water over the bow
being
deck.
ejected out forward.
Exactly.
Because, the pressure all builds up and then it sort of shoots it back out.
Exactly that, and it's important that you avoid that, because on this boat you've got that lovely big bow lounge, so you don't really want it.
The point of a catamaran though is to have a nice smooth ride through the water, and if you end up with such a deep bridge deck that it's impacting and giving you a great big slam every time you go over a tall wave, it slightly sort of nullifies the whole point of having one. So it'd be really interesting to see trial it, but certainly at the show it looked good.
It looked fantastic. Are we going to move on from that, because obviously we've got a lot of boats to discuss, but what I want to point out about this Aquila 46, just go and have a look at it. You'll be amazed by the volume, but you'll be mightily impressed, I think, by the ingenuity of the deck layouts, the way they've used that, and that's particularly important. So what have you got for us?
Well, briefly, if we're going to stick with a catamaran theme, there were some interesting things going on there. There was a new Blue Game BGF 45, which was a foiling catamaran. So Blue Game spent a lot of money building a foiling hydrogen-powered chase boat for the America's Cup. And this is their kind of leisure interpretation of it. It's a very different boat. It's not powered by hydrogen or anything like that, and the foil doesn't actually lift the whole boat out of the water, but it just elevates it by about 30 centimetres to reduce the drag through the water. And I did have a brief sea trial on that, and it was extremely effective, actually.
Was it?
So it felt really quick. It was much more fuel efficient than you'd expect of something like that, and it tracked like a catamaran. So the lovely thing like a catamaran is that it's a bit like an ice skate. They have more or less endless grip when you go round a corner. They don't sort of slide because they're sort of sharp. They just track round. So it felt really agile, really quick, impressively fuel efficient.
With the foil, did it actually heel a touch into the corner rather than leaning a touch out?
Yeah, a little bit. It stayed pretty flat. But it felt more like a sort of monohull, really agile monohull sports cruiser than a sort of big chunky catamaran. So,
that's quite cool, isn't it? Because you always get a softer ride generally with power cats than you would tend to from monohulls. But when you add the foil, there's kind of there's kind of a even more graduated sort of re-entry, isn't there? It
softens the ride a little
bit.
Yeah. But to be honest, I think my two favourite boats of the show were at completely opposite extremes of the market. On the one hand, there was the fabulous new Beneteau Swift Trawler 37. Yeah. Really clever, really affordable. At the other extreme, the San Lorenzo SX120, an amazing explorer yacht, sort of 16 million euros worth, but couldn't be different. But I think we should spend a little bit of time talking about that Beneteau first. Because for me, in the real world, if you're actually looking to buy a boat, I think that represents fantastic value for money. They've
what sort of money are we talking about there?
Well, their starting price is 299,000 euros ex VAT, sort of £280,000. And the really interesting thing about that is that it's a bigger boat, a better boat, more sort of featured boat than the one it replaces, the old Swift Trawler 35. But it's actually 10 to 15% cheaper.
You've got to love that, haven't you?
Well, it's unheard of in our market. Boat prices have been creeping up ahead of inflation to the point where a lot of people just can't really get that first step on the ladder. And Beneteau have grasped that particular nettle, really done something about it, worked out what it is people actually want and need from a boat rather than just chucking everything at it, and built it to a price. But to all intents and purposes, it's a better boat. You've got a bigger saloon, you've got a bigger galley, you've got a proper bathroom with a separate shower compartment rather than a wet room.
Those steep trawler style sides as well. You've got loads of volume, haven't you?
Lots of volume for a 37-foot boat. And it's got everything you need to go cruising on as a family. True, the second cabin is quite compact. It's a bunk cabin rather than a full double. But as a first way into a brand new, really credible, good-looking, well-featured family cruising yacht, I think it represents exceptional value for money.
Well, that's really good news. I jumped on board and photographed it briefly. I didn't spend much time, though. I was hoping it was brilliant because that Swift Trawler 54 we tried last year, won the MBY award, was absolutely sensational. Yeah. So to transfer a lot of that merit onto a platform that small, and I'm right in saying the 37 is now the smallest in that
It
fleet,
is the smallest, It's a single engine, but it's a shaft drive. Yanmar 440, I think.
So affordable to run too.
So relatively affordable to run. It's not going to use a lot of fuel. It's quick enough when you need it to. It'll do 20-something knots or thereabouts. But equally happy at displacement speed. So you can just poodle around. I really think that's... I'm just so pleased that somebody has addressed that issue with the fact that prices keep creeping up. And to make it bigger, better, just little things like... The cleats, they're made of stainless steel rather than aluminium in the old one. The quality of the wood veneers a little bit thicker, a little bit better. But also just the space and the volume and clever little things like everybody carries a paddleboard now, so they put two little paddleboard racks at the end of the flybridge. So you can just
at the aft end?
Just at the aft end. You can slot them laterally. There's a little manual crane to help you lift them up there. They haven't over-specced it and fitted expensive electric cranes or hydraulic platforms. The seat at the back of the cockpit just simply slides forwards and backwards on rails so that when you're at anchor and you're not using the platform to stow a tender, you can push the seat back, have a bit more space.
You know what else I like about that boat is the fact they really, even though it's the latest launch in an established range, they haven't sexed it up too much at all. It looks like a proper Swift Trawler, doesn't it, in miniature, which I like a lot.
Exactly, but they've introduced some of the details from the larger yachts, like the little wood sort of panels on those fashion plates or flybridge. You don't have to have a flybridge, you can have a sedan version, but even if you go for the sedan, they actually use the roof so that you can put things like put a couple of cushions on for sunbathing, or you can put a couple of bike holders on there, or paddleboard racks, whatever it is. So, just really sensible design work. It's clearly been designed by people who know how boats are used, understand what people value, and have built it to a price.
Top quality. So take us to the other end of the scale then. Talk to us about that San Lorenzo, because presumably they got all sorts of playfulness with the deck layouts there, the deck levels as well.
It's just fabulous. I love what they do. That SX range, it's the kind of, they call it an explorer range, largely because from a stylistic point of view, you've got that sort of reverse angle screen. But it just looks fantastic. You've got this huge aft sort of beach club area with a sort of spa pool in the centre of it, cushions that slide over it, massive fold-down balconies on either side, and really clever things like they've got these very sort of architectural arches that stretch up and over the folding platforms. And one of those arches is actually a concealed crane, so it'll swing in and lift up and have a really big tender on board it, and that'll lift that up and swing it out. But rather than just having sort of open platforms, having that arch coming over it just makes it look way cooler for some reason. And then when you go into the boat, you go down into a kind of lower saloon area, sort of beach club saloon. So you've got that lovely sort of playfulness of both inside and outside spaces. You've got this magnificent sort of spiral staircase that winds up through the yacht that in itself, looks like the kind of absolutely top class. It's the kind of thing you'd find in a really expensive beachside house. But it's a feature, rather than just a staircase. It looks like a feature.
You want that from San Lorenzo, don't you?
Yeah.
This is not off-the-shelf stuff, is it? This is this proper custom.
Yeah, and
gear.
that's one of the joys of San Lorenzo. You can, pretty much spec it how you want it. Yeah. So they give you a kind of price level, and you can then you can choose whatever designer furniture you want, or whatever porcelain or crockery or cutlery. They will completely. There's dozens of different marbles and leathers you can choose from. But it's just such a cool looking yacht, and it is 15.9 million euros as a starting price. But when you're up at that level, what's a few million here and there? But it really looks like it. And if you're gonna go big and expensive, you want something that looks like it's big and expensive, and this really does. But it also just works really well as a yacht. So yes, excessive, but if you're gonna go extreme, go the whole way. Don't go. There's no point going in half-hearted.
Well, I've got nothing too extreme here to talk about.
What else is
nothing
on
that
your
combats
list,
that. Well, I've got the Absolute Novetta 62.
Yeah,
right. We love those, don't we?
Yeah,
and I should probably have talked about that directly after your Swift trawler, really.
Well, it's like a sort of grown-up version of that.
It is. It is, with an extra dash of probably of exclusivity and luxury. Yeah. But why do we love that Novetta range? Well, stylistically, we love it. It looks great.
Yeah.
Right? You've got those massive sort of tapered asymmetrical diamond windows that are just so deep and so big. They give you massive views inside. And then when you move up to the main deck, you've got plunging saloon windows all the way down to the deck, and then you've got cutaway bulwarks, so you've got massive views from inside there. And aesthetically, it looks magnificent. You've got the glass balustrades.
It's one of those boats that almost sort of better inside than out, though, isn't it? Because of those huge windows, you've got so much light coming in. You've got all the volume, but without it looking sort of chunky or ugly. No,
I think it looks beautiful. And more to the point, it looks really distinctive in a very competitive market.
And they build them nicely, don't they? The interior fit and finish is lovely.
They do. Well, when you're talking about the kind of style and luxury on that San Lorenzo, it's not comparable, of course. It's a different level of boat, but the saloon space on this Novetta 62 is you walk in there, it's a bit of a wow moment, really.
Has that got one of those sort of main deck owners' cabins as well? Forward owners cabin? Forward owners cabin on the lower deck, of course. That's kind of trademark absolute, isn't it? And I love the way they do that. I mean, some people just don't like a forward owners cabin, but it takes you away from the engine room. It takes you away in the stern berth from the pontoon. Gives you extra separation. You get great headroom, don't you? Great
headroom, huge windows up there as well. And then you've got a natural place for your ensuite, which is in the forepeak. And you can do all sorts with the furniture around the forward-facing bed. It's just a really effective piece of work. And then you go back to the VIP cabin, which, of course, is the full beam cabin. And genuinely, I know loads of builders say this, you've got two master cabins, two owners cabins. You have.
Yeah.
I mean, if
really
you don't like the bow cabin idea... sack it off, go amidships. It's brilliant. You won't regret it. Either way, it's fantastic. And we've seen a lot of boats lately. I'm going to suggest that it's on this boat where there's a kind of split facilities on the port side. I could get into terrible trouble for this. I could be thinking of something utterly different.
That is the trouble with Canada. You see so many boats. It's quite hard to keep a sort of mental picture of exactly what belongs to what.
Yeah, I'm sure there's split facilities on the port side of this full beam second owner's cabin, and in the centre kind of the sink and surface bit of storage and a huge mirror, which is lovely in its own right.
So it's open to the bathroom with a loo on one side of it and the shower on the other.
Which is
that
practical.
Always feels properly grown up.
And you hit a button, down comes that huge mirror, and directly behind it is a whole window of exactly equal proportions. It's massive, pleasing. So you get a huge view opening up. And you just think it's just so cool. And then you get the engineering space as well in the third cabin, the forward bulkhead of that goes beneath the owner's cabin all the way to the bow thruster, which sounds a bit weird, but they do it on a lot of Novettas. And it's a brilliant practical space for your engineering. and it works. It's practical. They think about that. It's not just a luxury platform.
I think there's one more boat we need to mention, though, whilst we're talking explorers.
Go on.
That was probably the most controversial boat at the show, and that is the new Galeon 430
Oh,
EXP,
yes.
the Explorer.
Yeah. The only boat, arguably, at the show that was uglier than your Blue Game.
Oh, harsh.
Yeah, I know. I thought that Blue Game looked manky.
It's
if I'm
a
absolutely
curious looking thing, but
Curious
I
looking
quite
thing,
like it. It just looks a bit different, and it's a nice open deck space, wraparound screen, really well protected. The Galeon is challenging. I will agree with you there, because it's got that. It's almost like a tugboat aesthetic.
Yeah, isn't
really
it? Yeah.
blunt bow at the front, very beamy. Almost no sort of point to it at all. It looks like you're sort of pushing a great tugboat through the water.
We're kind of used to that from Galeon, but more so.
Yeah, but this is really... I mean, I know they have the sort of flared cheeks on some of their boats.
Cheeks, yeah,
but this
do.
is like a properly blunt... It's more like a barge or a tugboat.
Yeah.
But I quite like it. I quite like the fact that they're doing something a bit different. And then the big sort of reverse angle screen above it.
Well, Galeon are always doing something a bit different.
Well,
aren't
they're just
Yeah.
brave. They do stuff that other people wouldn't dare.
So tell us about the brave and productive elements of this new Galeon.
Well, what's rather fun about it, I have to admit, I think the Explorer name is a bit of a stretch, because it's really not the kind of boat you're going to go exploring to the Arctic or Antarctic.
Yeah.
It's not that sort of tough and robust.
Yeah.
But it's a bit like... it's a bit like all the SUVs you see these days. Nobody's going to drive their Volkswagen Tiguan across the Sahara or anything, are they? So, and nobody's going to take this Galeon to the Arctic. But what it has got is they've just thrown all their best features at it. So they've got these enormous folding platforms, and it really, it's a 43-foot boat, and I swear to you, these platforms have got to be 25 foot long. They stretch well over half the length of the boat.
Wow.
And once they've folded out, you've almost got double the boat. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And of course, they integrate that really well.
What are they used for? Like bar space?
So on the
and
starboard
settees?
side, it's a bar space, but not just 2 bar stools. They've got 4 bar stools lined up along it. It's a little bit weird, because only sort of 2 of them overlap with the sort of saloon and galley area to create a proper sort of interaction between the inside and outside space. The other 2 are slightly sort of parked on the side deck.
Yeah.
But it just looks amazing. And then they've got the big carousel seat at the back, so there's a sort of U-shaped dinette.
Yeah.
And that whole thing swivels around, so you can have the whole dinette facing out to sea or in towards the boat.
I remember the first boat they tried to put that on, and they experienced a lot of technical difficulties in terms of the umbilical that came up through the deck to power the unit.
This is a manual one. I don't think there's any
it?
power involved in it. It was a little bit sticky at the show, this particular one, but they built the whole boat in about 20 minutes. It was unbelievable. They came up with the idea for it and thought, we're going to do this in time for Cannes, and they damn well did, and God knows what they must have done to make that possible. But fair play to them. And sure, it'll need a bit of refining and tweaking and working out and make sure the mechanism is nice and smooth. But you get a hell of a lot of boat for your money with a load of features on it. Big old flybridge up top, 2 decent cabins, amazing sort of quality and inside, lots of sliding windows on the inside as well. So it links up with the bar on the starboard side, and then you've got a lovely sort of seating area with a reversible backrest that can face out to port. So it just is one of those sort of fabulously versatile boats that you've just got to admire the balls that they've got to produce something that looks so different, throw all their features at it, chuck it out there, get it done. And who knows if it'll work or not.
Really
not everybody's going to like it.
Yeah, no, you really do have to admire their balls, because it's all very easy for a designer to generate these spectacular, fanciful pictures on a piece of paper. Actually committing to it and building that stuff and taking it to a show and pinning your colours to the mast. Yeah. There's a lot of credit due for that.
Yeah, and they offer, I think that the UK dealer now offers a 5-year warranty on everything. Certainly, I can't remember offhand if it's 5 or 3, but that does show a certain amount of confidence, because everybody worries about all these folding features that they're gonna get sticky or not work, or just when you need to do something, it's the motor's going to fail. But I think giving a sensible warranty with it means it'll give people a bit of confidence in it, and hopefully, it is. The other problem is all those extra features do add money. So it starts off, I think the starting price is about 721,000 euros. But once you've put all the different kit on it, it is over €1 million. So, and ultimately, it's still only a 43-foot boat. So,
and you know, I've got a lot of time for Galleon, but it is still a Galleon. And when you're over $1 million, there are some there's
a lot of choices,
sexy exotic brands that you can start looking at, aren't there? Well, another company, Spanish company that does things very differently, always has done, is De Antonio. They had their new flagship, their D60. They're a 60-foot boat that takes the same principles they used on previous models and won awards for. I won't talk too much about it because we're going to talk about that specifically as our boat of the week in podcast 14, I think. But suffice it to say that the principle with De Antonio's is that they kind of conceal their outboards beneath a sunbed and extend the day spaces further after that. And they have to do various things with kind of hull extensions to mitigate the extra weight. But on this particular boat, you know, you're looking at it, you're thinking, will that principle scale up to 60 foot? Well, they've got quadruple 600 V12s under that sunbed aft. Yeah.
Ouch.
And the same principles in terms of the deck layouts and the lower accommodation. It's quite a spectacular boat.
Again, I look forward to discussing.
In some regards,
sounds like a monster.
It is a monster, and in some regards, it's actually owned by Carlos Sainz, the boat that was at the show. In some regards, the bravery results in slightly incomplete or unresolved kind of design ideas that need a bit of finessing, as they do with Galleon. But that's part of the bravery of the thing, isn't it? So instead of that, what I want to talk about quickly is the Beneteau GT40.
Another new Beneteau, yeah.
Yeah, there's lots of them.
Yeah.
There was a GT35 there. The Gran Turismo line, it was looking long in the tooth.
Yeah.
People were leaving it behind a little bit, and they knew that, and Buying Public knew that. So they've revamped it with the 35 and the 40. 35, interesting enough boat. The 40, though, more interesting. So obviously in the modern market, what do you need? Well, you probably need fold-down terraces, and you get a pair of those as standard. In the cockpit, instead of facing, well, you have facing benches, you know, as a dinette with a table in the middle, but they're not linear. You've got a kind of swept shape that mirrors each bench.
I've seen that, sort of like a foreshortened L.
Yeah, exactly
but not quite symmetrical. So you get nice little corners, and it just creates a...
So there's a sort of swept table shape in the middle as an infill, which is interesting in its own right. And you're exactly right. Instead of just a linear bench where you sit and you do your thing, well, you can stick your feet up, you can nestle in. You've got a couple of built-in chaise longue, essentially.
Well, it's always nicer sitting in a corner, isn't it? I mean,
always, yeah.
You know, I feel a bit exposed here. I'd far rather be sitting
snuggling in the corner together. I know the camera crew won't allow it, Hugo, sadly. No. But where was I? Yes, there's more to this boat than just the cockpit. So they got a nice big wet bar out there in the back, huge fridges, a decent bow lounge. But what's particularly interesting is the helm station, which I think is for 3 people, is raised ahead of that wet bar, ahead of the cockpit, and you can entirely cordon it off. Completely 100%. So you can turn that into an air-conditioned or a heated
so it's
capsule.
a nice sort of, So effectively indoors when you want it to be.
Indoors. So, of course, you're making this essentially a 4-season boat, really.
And outboard and stern drive power, or was it?
It was an inboard that we looked at.
I'm sure they do an outboard version too.
They do
I think
an
they do
outboard
both.
version.
Yeah.
I would think for the American market, principally.
Yeah.
But...
and presumably quite good value, being a Beneteau.
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask about the price because I didn't note it down. It is good value. Damn you, Hugo.
We can probably... I'll tell you what, look,
you take a look,
it?
and then you can chirp up once you've found it. In the meantime, I'll talk about the cabins, because you go down to the cabins. It's all open plan. You've got a lovely big permanent bed up there in the bow, and beneath the cockpit, beneath the helm, you've got a midships kind of lounge, a very, very spacious lounge, which you can convert into an enormous double. Really nice facilities, really nice fit out, actually. Beautiful work they've done with the lighting, kind of recessed LED lighting in the bulkheads and the deck heads that kind of leads the eye forwards to the bed in the bow. It's very elegant, very nicely put together, feels very modern.
€492,000 from. So just bear that in mind when you're considering, shall I get my GT40, shall I get my Swift Trawler 37? Similar cabin space. Yeah, the GT is a little bit sexier and quite a bit quicker.
Yeah.
But £200,000 more.
But you and I, we are both we're both old men, so we'd go for that Swift Trawler 37 any day of the week.
The younger, more dynamic individual might prefer something a little bit quicker and sexier.
Yeah, but if you want something that bridges that gap between young and old, and it's basically a boat that anyone who is remotely sane would kill to own, then that Marex 390. Oh, what a lovely boat.
Why do we all go a little bit weak at the knees every time we mention a Marex?
It really winds me up a bit because Espen, the boss there, and he's always there. And frankly, if I was a boss of a company that was knocking out boats like that, I'd always be there because I want to just bask in the glory of it all. I want to criticise his stuff, just in pursuit.
Can you? Is there anything you can criticise?
No, not with the 390. No. So look, the 440 gourmet cruiser that you can also have a Scandinavia layout, that won an MBY award, didn't it?
Yeah.
So basically, somehow they've got a 39 footer that pretty much provides all of that, but
all the good stuff,
all the good
slightly
stuff,
smaller, slightly more affordable,
cheaper, all of that. And on the aft platform, you had those lovely sort of teak boxes. You stick your fenders away and your lines and everything. Everything had its place. Well, those boxes on this are used for a kind of aft-facing, transom-mounted sort of seating area for your coffee in the morning before you even go into the cockpit. I did that with Espen.
Had a coffee, sitting on your little teak boxes
in the morning.
Was it a beautiful thing?
The sun was coming. It was a beautiful thing.
There's a bit of a bromance going on.
We're very close.
I don't want to know
good
about
lad. But step into that cockpit again. We talked about corners. Well, it's a square space, huge and safe. But because you can open the transom door and pin it in place, it's got cushions. You've got 5 corners in a square.
How can you have 5 corners?
You've got 5 corners in a square. I'm telling you, it does work.
You're breaking the laws of physics.
Yes, that's what he's done. And you've got lovely wide opening doors through to your saloon, which is equally lovely. You've got the canvases built in, so you can wrap it up. You've got sunroofs overhead, and as standard. You can essentially create a really lovely cylinder of accommodation right from the transom to the helm station, and feel quite pleased with yourself. Couple of cabins down below, both of which are excellent, and a proper bathroom. He hasn't tried to cram 3 cabins in. It's not the way they operate.
No,
just
not
2
in a
really good
39-foot boat.
Really good ones.
Boat of the show?
Well, look, I can't think of
predictable.
Yeah, I know, but I can't think of a 40-foot cruiser I prefer to own.
Yeah, fair enough.
What are you going to do? It's just annoying, isn't it?
All right. So that's your boat of the show.
Yeah, what's yours?
I think I'll go for that little Beneteau. I just think it's such an important message to get out there that you can get a really useful, well-built, well-spec'd boat for less money than you could 3 or 4 years ago. I think that's an amazing result, and I think they deserve all the plaudits they get for that.
Yes, so do I. I think Cannes deserves lots of credit for an excellent exhibition in a world where a lot of them are a little bit flawed. And I think generally the designers and boat builders of the world deserve a bit of credit for surprising us with the quality and calibre of the stuff they're putting out there. It's been brilliant.
If you go to one show all year, that is a show to go to. Partly, obviously, because of the boats, but also, I mean, Cannes just such a lovely place to be. So if you take a few days out in September for an overseas boat show, that's the one.
Exactly. Treat yourself. So, it's product time.
Yep.
Our product of today is watches. Marine watches.
Okay.
And then,
what does that actually mean, though, marine watches? Is that a thing? Is it just a waterproof watch? Is there...
I don't know. You clearly haven't seen this puppy sitting on my wrist here. And that's supposed to light up dramatically. There we are. Light up dramatically the moment I point to it. My Garmin Quatix 8. Now, we'll talk about that in a minute, because it does a great many things. I've always found it quite peculiar that in a world where you can essentially have a wrist-mounted computer that does everything except make the tea, people still commit to kind of one-dimensional mechanical watches. It's like in the world of computers, just writing using a quill and parchment. Do you know what I mean?
I know. I sort of get it, and they are lovely things because blokes don't have a lot of jewellery they can wear, is it? So it's slightly the thing that some blokes just go a bit overboard on and buy a super expensive watch because it's a little bit of a statement. You know, they're lovely things. I'm not one of these watch buffs that loves all these sort of mechanical complications and tourbillons and goodness knows how many gems and jewels. But I do get it. I can see that you know, if you've got tons of money and you want to go overboard on something, they're a lovely sort of collectible thing.
Yeah. But you know, if you have a mechanical watch, you always have a little viewing window on the back so you can check it out periodically. Take it off and have a look.
But you don't need to spend huge amounts of money for that. There's a whole sort of new generation of largely British brands that are doing these kind of mid-range watches, often which will have a sort of a proper mechanical movement in them that look really smart, but they're not spending millions of pounds on advertising to make sure they're on the back page of every magazine. But you can spend, you know, anywhere from a couple of £100 to £1,000 and still get a really nice quality British designed, often with a mechanical movement. It might be a sort of Japanese mechanical movement or a Swiss mechanical movement, not absolutely top class in terms of the sort of complications, but really nice things. I've got a couple here actually, and
we'll get a couple out.
Go on then. Well, this is from a company called Marlowe. I think it's about British company. I think it's about £300, but I'm a massive World Water Speed Record fan, and the whole Campbell family and story I'm absolutely obsessed by. And this is the Coniston range, so it is in honour of Donald Campbell, and it's a lovely thing. You open up the box and there's all these, you know, there's a little limited edition card with all the sort of details on it. There's a nice little booklet with all the story of Campbell. And then rather a nice watch itself. It's all beautifully presented. The unboxing thing is half the treat on these things.
Yeah, it is.
But it's a nice looking watch. You have got the little window with a view of the mechanical movement behind it.
And that feels distinctly nautical, doesn't it? That.
Yeah, and you know, I don't know how special it is or not, but I think for £300, it's rather nice to have something that feels a bit different. I wear it. I don't tend to wear it during the day because it feels a bit too sort of precious and I don't know. I'm not sure if this is fully waterproof, to be honest. I think this is more of a kind of dress watch, but I do. That's why I sort of get it, because it makes you feel a little bit special when you put it on of an evening and feel like you've got a proper.
So one for the yacht club.
One for the yacht club.
But rather than the boat, especially a fast open boat where you're getting lashed with salty water.
Yeah, and you know, for years I've always just worn a little Loris titanium waterproof watch to 50 metres. Probably the best watch I've ever owned in terms of reliability. I always wear titanium because I find it reacts less with my skin. Sometimes if you get a stainless steel one, I get a little bit of sort of rash forming under there.
Yeah.
£30 that is.
Yeah.
And I've worn it for years. Love it. Absolutely unbreakable. Nothing complicated. Doesn't do anything remotely special other than tell the time. But that's kind of what you need watches to do.
Too, because the plastic ones you can start to get a bit whiffy after a time.
Super robust. Unlike the leather ones, it doesn't sort of rot when you go in the water. But my head has been turned, and like you, I've got one of these new Garmin watches.
Well, what have you got?
Well, this is called the Mark Captain, and it is it was the top of the range about a couple of years ago. I think they still do it. They've updated it since then, but I do really like it. I have to admit, it is super robust, super waterproof. Never take it off for anything. It's got full sort of GPS. You know, it's great fun. Even when I just go out on my windsurfer and stuff, I can set it to a little boating app, and it'll take a full track of exactly where I've been, how many miles I've covered, top speed I've reached during it, all those kind of things.
Yeah. Well, it's you know, when you get to the level of watches like these things from Garmin, it's actually, it is genuinely easier to mention the things they don't do, isn't it?
Yeah, and honestly, most of the stuff I don't really use. I've had to turn off the notifications. I got fed up of it constantly buzzing on my wrist when another text comes in or another email comes in. So I've turned off that, but then you have got access to all these great functions. I'm ashamed to say I've even used it on the golf course. It's got a kind of golf app, and it tells you how far it is to the next pin, and because it knows where you are, it can then tell you, you know, you're now only 70 yards from the pin or whatever it is. It's got a whole sort of sleep. I'd hate that sleep
where
monitor
it
function.
gives me a bloody score.
Yeah, I know.
Out of 100, and that's really upset me. I thought I was doing
Why is
right
that
this
useful?
morning.
I don't want to know if I slept. I know perfectly well.
No, well, do you? I thought I'd slept well. I got a score of 21 a couple of days ago.
Out of 100.
100. That's unprecedented.
That's not good.
No, it's quite frightening. It's like, you're Smith, you've got to sleep a bit or you're going to die. Oh, my God.
Well, maybe that is quite useful.
Yeah. I don't know. Look, I mean, as I say, these watches do pretty much everything. But I'm a fairly simplistic fella, and I believe in specialist equipment. So if I'm going to use charts, I want it on a chart plotter or paper. I don't really want it here.
Well, no, and I have got full charting access on the phone, on my phone, on the watch.
Yeah.
You can also actually drive the thing from your watch because you can actually link it to your autopilot and you can actually steer the boat. I don't know when you're ever going to use that. It's quite fun to show off, but
it is.
I mean,
really, if you look at this screen here, the analog screen I have, then I've got tide times in focus, which I want. I've got wind speed and direction, which I want, and I've got the time, which I want.
That's quite useful, isn't it?
That's everything I really want. So this is way beyond my pay grade, but thanks to Garmin for sending it to me. I really appreciate it. But I do.
What does that cost then? How much is that one?
Just under £1,000. It's interesting though, because I've got tiny little girly wrists, as you can see. So I get a bit put off by dive watches and marine specific watches, where they got big chunky cases. This is the 47mm case. So it looks all right on my wrist, I think. They do a 51mm case as well, which is significantly larger, of course, but it actually comes with the same display. All you get with that is double the battery capacity, which for an extra 90 quid. 29 days instead of 16. So you'd think, actually, if you've got the wrist to handle it, which you have.
Well, I didn't think I had, but and when I first put this on, I felt really self-conscious about it because it is quite a big, chunky thing. But I've sort of got used to it, and I've bashed it so many times on things, and there's not a single scratch on it at all. I don't know what they made it of. It must be some special unobtainium or something. But it's absolutely bulletproof.
Yeah, I'm even more talented than you at breaking things. I break everything. I break everything so often that when I was a child, I still remember this. I probably need therapy for it. I remember my family telling me that I was being pointed at. You should never own anything nice. That's what I was told as a child.
And you've pretty much stuck to that. To be
I have. Yeah.
Other than when somebody happens to send you something nice.
Yeah. So they've sent me this, and it's putting up with the abuse beautifully. But I did have an embarrassing moment because I was in the pub with some mates of mine. It was before school pickup. We just thought we'd have a cheeky little half.
Before school pickup?
Yeah, and then have some chewing gum so we didn't smell of bitter. And I'm sitting there, and the missus gave me a call, and I went to answer my phone, as you would. And I was all confused because there was noise coming out of my watch, and I couldn't. And I put the phone away and then started speaking on my watch like this.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, that's a thing. I don't know how I managed to make that happen, but it is happening. So I'm speaking on my watch, and I look like an absolute tool.
Obviously.
No question about it. And my mates in stitches just crying with laughter. But I've since used it quite often. And the brilliant thing about it is it's so clear. The audio, and your voice is clear too, and you can actually, if you're driving a boat, you can keep your hand on the wheel. It works from a distance, so it's really impressive.
What they're saying coming out of your watch.
Yeah, it's genuinely good.
That's weird.
Yeah, it's really good.
Probably fine. I can do that with this, and I still haven't worked out how to do it.
Well, I can reply to messages with my voice as well, which is quite handy. And I assume that's a feature that's been on watches for centuries. But I'm a very old man. But this is cool. Check this out. This makes me look like a superhero, and I know that for a fact.
Which is your main mission in life.
Totally. All day long. That's what I want to... Check this out. Bosh! Look at that. Torch on my wrist.
A torch on your watch.
Now, you think that's silly because people have been putting that on like key fobs and stuff forever, but that's pointless. This is not. You wouldn't believe how often I get to use this. It's fantastic.
Take your word for it.
The kids love it.
Just because I haven't got one on mine.
No, you haven't, have you? And you can adjust the brightness to preserve your battery life and so on. It's just a brilliant bit of kit and too sophisticated for me.
Have you got the little special quick release watch straps though? Check this out. Look at that.
I don't know.
So you can change it, and it comes with two different ones. So you've got a rubber strap for diving and stuff, and then you want your slightly smarter evening strap, you just clip them in and out.
No, I don't. But what
that's worth an extra £1,000 alone.
Yeah, it is. But what I will talk about, actually, and I should point out that this gives you all the regular wellness stuff that you get on land-based watches, but the strap is brilliant. It's long and it's really malleable. So you can...
What's yours made of, though?
It's a kind of really soft rubber.
No.
But this is great because...
Much nicer. Jacquard, it's called. I don't know what that means.
Well, that's fine. But if you got your watch under your Fowleys, and your Fowleys often have a little gasket and a couple of straps and all that, you can't get the bloody thing out. Whereas this will go over your Fowleys quite comfortably and do up. So you can put it on the outside and you've got access to your phone calls
that
and
will give me
your emergency torch.
Sweaty wrists and little rashes and things. It's rubber. That's not a nice thing to have on your wrist, is it?
It is. It doesn't even...
I do not want to sniff your watch strap.
All the way along.
He's trying to make me sniff his watch strap. There's something wrong with this bloke.
Quality kit. I really like it. But
right.
I want to talk about a different watch. It's non-specialist, but as I say, I've always broken things, never owned anything nice. Well, I do own something nice, and it's called a Casio G-Shock. Now, I'm sure you know all about Casio G-Shocks.
That's proper Action Man stuff, isn't it?
Oh, it's brilliant. I absolutely love it. I'm going to mention the particular number of this watch because it's GW M5610U1ER. They're really, really catchy name.
Sounds like a Wi-Fi password, not a watch.
Yeah, I know. But this thing is amazing. It puts up with all sorts. And, I quite like that retro style. You know, when watches in the 80s, they started having, they'd have gold watches, all blingy with, a little calculator.
Yes, a calculator watch.
That's right. And a little digital display.
Why did anybody think that was a good idea?
Yeah, well, this Casio G-Shock, not only will it take... all the abuse my life dishes out and my clumsiness, but it just looks cool and retro and brilliant, and it's £100 odd. But we should mention the super posh analog watches, the likes of the Rolex Deep Sea and the Rolex Submariner, which is kind of iconic, and the Omega Seamaster, because people want to be James Bond on board their boats, and people on things like that San Lorenzo 120 you talked about who are probably going to wear a Patek Philippe, aren't they?
Oh, yeah. You know, my dad had a Patek Philippe for a while. It was a lovely thing.
Did he?
Yeah.
But the ad says that that's an heirloom, not just... So that should be yours.
Yeah, unfortunately, he sold it to put a new drive in.
Is that right?
He was a very practical man. I think he inherited it from his father. And I thought, this is lovely. They always say that, you look after it for the next generation. There I was, the next generation, waiting for it to come. No, need to put a new drive in, sold the watch, new drive, job done. Have I still got that drive? No, I haven't.
No, exactly.
Anyway,
he's not done well, is he? Well, look, a couple of other features I reckon are genuinely useful. Some of these features, as I say, when it does everything, some of them are a bit silly. No, the G-Shock don't do a great deal. No. It does enough. But on watches like the ones we have, the compass bearing's quite handy. Anchor
alarm. I do think that's useful. So you can set it to give a specific diameter around your boat. You can go away and have a pint in the pub, and if your boat starts dragging, it'll send you a little alert and say, you need to get back.
Yeah. And I think although I don't know if either of our watches will achieve this, it's quite possible they will, but man overboard alerts for those wearing these posh watches makes loads of sense. Beyond that, I think you can pretty much just ignore most of the marketing flannel, buy whatever the hell you got the budget and the appetite to buy. But
I think that is the bottom line, because the reality is that £35 Loris will do the most important thing, which is tell the time and keep doing it accurately and reliably for years to come. Yeah. Waterproof to 50 metres. I ain't going anywhere below 50 metres.
No.
So, but you're right. If you want a few extra features, I'm amazed how useful it is having one of these, and I'm amazed how robust it is. But £2,000.
Yeah, whereas £1,000, and I think it does. It does far more than I'll ever understand. Yeah. And as I say, if I got the tide and I've got the wind speed and direction, it's everything I need really. Yeah. Because I've got various other bits of equipment that do the things that this tells you it will coordinate with. I agree. Do. So there it is.
Enough about watches.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on. And we are going to move on to... Oh, well, this is quite interesting. You've already broached this subject in your talk about the Galleon adventure boat.
Explorer
boat, I should say. So, the issue of the day, and I think this is high time we discussed this on this podcast, is making sense of the modern adventure boat, because our viewers, I have no doubt, just as we have, will have seen all kinds of boats telling us that they're adventure platforms or explorer platforms or
it's
even
become a
expedition
buzzword,
platforms.
hasn't it? Everybody is banging on that, they're adventure boats or adventure brands or explorers or expedition.
Yeah.
It feels like there's been sort of name inflation. Do you know what I mean? In a way that I think it first happened with sort of super yachts. In the old days, a super yacht covered everything that was bigger than about 80 foot, and then suddenly everybody's talking about sort of compact super yachts. So they needed to invent a new word. So they came up with mega yacht, and that was things of I don't know. There's no official sort of bracket at which it becomes a mega yacht. But then eventually, even that ran out of space, and somebody started the giga yacht.
Giga yacht.
So it's just a sort of slightly pointless arms race to think of an ever bigger, newer, more adventurous style of name, and it feels like that slightly happened in the whole sort of adventure market.
What do you think? Do you think Axopar and Saxtor are responsible for a lot of this? Because what they do is they take a platform and they enable you to do more with it, and their marketing materials right from the very off made that explicit. So you'd have
Axopar was very much the adventure, and it still sells itself as the adventure brand.
Yeah,
but I can see the point of that, because prior to that, they were basically sort of pilot house boats, weren't they? And that's not a very sort of sexy sell, pilot house. It's or wheelhouse boats, whereas suddenly if it's an adventure boat, it sounds a whole lot sexier. And to be fair, they do look a bit sexier too.
They do, but prior to that, as you say, a well sorted sports fisher would do pretty much the job of an adventure boat, a bit of everything, wouldn't it? A bit of... Well, actually, before we get into that, let's just define what an adventure boat ought to provide. I mean, for me, I know adventure, the concept of adventure is relative to the individual. So I was talking to the boss at Island Ribs, and they do some proper offshore ribs down there, really heavily built things. And he was laughing at the idea of an adventure boat, because he's saying, look, adventure to some people is popping off to a pleasant anchorage for a gin and tonic. Well, maybe it is, and that makes sense. But adventure to other people is going out and not being certain whether you'll return alive. Do you know? And he is more towards that side of things.
Okay.
So with that proviso in mind, which kind of undermines everything I'm going to say, for me, there are 5 things that I think an adventure boat needs. Yeah, this is bold, because
the Alex Smith definition of an adventure.
That's
Go
right.
on then. Go on then, sell it to me.
There's seconds of thought behind this, so give it some respect. Decent range. That's one thing.
Fair play.
You need that. Some rough weather ability.
What does decent mean?
Well, again,
define.
don't you get into the definitions once I listed the 5.
Okay, come on.
Right? But as I say, the proviso of adventure being relative to the individual and your lifestyle and your expectations, your abilities, is all pertinent. Yep. So decent range, rough weather ability, shelter from the elements.
Yeah, I tend to agree, and that's where the sort of pilot house things. But of course, you can get open at Axopars and everything else, and they're still adventure boats. You can get adventure ribs, but carry on.
I think overnighting facilities as well, because if you don't have them, you got a day boat, and adventure is limited on a day boat by the very nature of the
There's
beast.
only so much adventure you can cram into 12 hours, isn't there?
That's right. And the 5th one, I think, has to be just some space for toys, to do more than the base platform enables you to do. So those 5 things, what do you think?
I think that's a pretty decent stab. I think they're fairly broad, generic sort of terms, as we mentioned with range. What is a good range? Because on a outboard powered day boat, a decent range is probably anything over 100 miles. You're rarely going to go more than that. Whereas on a explorer yacht, it could be... most flybridge boats will have a range of around 200 miles, maybe, planing flybridge boat. If you want to do a proper explorer, then you probably need at least 500. And some people would argue, well, you actually should be into the thousands, certainly on a displacement
transoceanic.
yacht.
What was that Arxon? When was it, like 7,000 miles?
Yes, 7,000 on the Arxon 85. Yeah, and that's a proper explorer range. But if you're really going offshore and exploring parts of the world where you may not be able to get fuel for a while, you need that kind of range. But no, I think that's a decent stab. But by definition, then, you can't have such a thing as an adventure rib, because there is not really any shelter on a rib. But Arxon do a rib, and they claim that was an adventure rib.
I tested that rib. I don't think we put the video out yet, or the article. In fact, that was quality. That's we had some rough old seas. I mean, probably 4-footers, but angry, aggressive 4-footers all over the shop, and it dealt with it quite beautifully.
And that's got quite a sort of versatile layout, hasn't it? It hasn't got anywhere to. Can you overnight on it? Is there any form of? Don't think you can.
No, I don't think you can. I mean, they're open to suggestions in terms of sort of customising each platform to suit the adventure you have in mind. And it's a proper adventure company. We've spoken about them before, but it's not just the hardware. They've got an infrastructure of specialists in all sorts of adventure applications, so that they can help you enjoy each platform to the very utmost. So that's quite a cool and modern take, because they understand that adventure means different things to different people.
Yeah, and it does. It looks like a properly robust boat. It's got a nice sort of versatile cockpit arrangement, so you've got a bit of seating. I think there's a table and.
But then you've got boats like the Highfield ADV7.
Yeah,
and ADV.
And presumably that is a reference to adventure in itself.
Yeah, I asked, and they were specific. Yes, it is.
Yeah,
this is about adventure, but no, it isn't really, according to our our parameters there.
No,
unless your adventure happens to be a pleasant bit of day boating.
Yeah, it's basically but I do quite like the principle behind that boat, of it being a sort of halfway house between a rib and a sort of walk around design. So you've got a bit more space in the cockpit.
It makes sense, doesn't it? A bit more internal volume. We're seeing hybrid ribs from a few manufacturers. Zodiac have produced some, haven't they?
Yep. And as you say, that galleon we spoke about, it's not really an explorer yacht in anything other than maybe it's sort of slightly more trawler yacht style.
Yeah.
But I don't sort of hold that against it. I've fallen for the whole SUV thing. I drive a little SUV, and there's no way I'd go anywhere substantial off-road in that. But I like the fact that it's a slightly higher driving position, slightly more robust.
You drive a crappy old Mercedes.
Well, I have got a crappy old Mercedes. That's for doing the long thing. I've got a Skoda L-Rock, but bizarrely,
I didn't know that was electric.
A thing. No, it's a little electric SUV. It's unbelievably good. But so I can't really. I'd be a hypocrite if I sort of held that against people for wanting their boats to look a bit more adventurous, even if they do nothing more adventurous than go to the hut for lunch.
No, I'm entirely in agreement with you. I've got no problem at all. It is, isn't it? But I've got no problem at all with people bandying about the notion of adventure, because if essentially, whoever you are and whatever you do, if you want a boat at any size, at any budget, you want adventure. Yeah. You're not buying it for the same old crap you've been used to shoreside.
To be frank, any boat you buy is going to be a certain amount of adventure.
It is.
Something's going to go wrong at some point, whether it's going wrong with a boat or wrong with your navigation. Yeah. You'll always end up having a little bit of an adventure, and it's always a bit of a relief where you arrive when you're meant to arrive and get back safely.
No, you're right, because you never, don't matter how experienced you are, you're never 100% sure, are you, until it's in the bag. Quite right.
But that's part of the appeal, that you need a little bit of edginess, and it takes the odd sort of hairy moment, or suddenly the weather turns snotty on you, or it gets a bit rough, or you have a problem with the engine, or get lost in the fog. But then the sense of achievement when you get there or get back, and it just takes you away from everything. That's what's so absorbing and involving about boating, is you don't have the sort of headspace to deal with all your normal daily worries, because you're too busy sort of focusing, making sure you get to where you need to get to and come back safely.
Yeah, and you don't kill your kids en route or lose your missus overboard or
be disappointing,
stuff. Wouldn't it just? So look, I mean, forever we've had proper, I'm thinking Finnish, Nordic, offshore pilot house cruisers, the likes of Nordstar, since more than 100 years now.
Yeah.
The likes of Sargo and Targo, we talk about them a lot. And they were adventure boats before adventure was
been invented.
No, so... So I'm impressed and delighted, frankly, with the likes of Saxdor and Axopar for taking that sort of base adventure concept, making it more, accessible, more versatile, for generating boats that do more, furniture that does more, in the same way as we've complemented Galleon, and by doing that, encouraging other designers, other manufacturers to give us individual platforms that do more than the one thing.
Yeah. And if you do, you can still go upscale and get. I think expedition yacht is now the sort of term for a proper, full-on adventure boat. So there are still grades you can go to if you want to put clear air between your full 7,000 nautical mile all aluminium ice class boat and your £100,000 open sack store, you can still differentiate the two if you want to.
For now, until Galleon launches the Galleon Expedition 45, and then we'll have to invent a fresh word.
Well, we will. But as you say, each to their own. I don't think we should hold it against them. And if it helps them sell a few more boats and be a bit more creative in what they do and what they offer and what it looks like, fair play to them.
So I think we've talked our way around the issue of the adventure boat a fair bit without making tremendous sense of it, I don't think, have we?
Well, I quite like your definition. I think that's a good starter for 10.
Okay, well, I'm sure you guys at home listening to this have your own ideas about what the adventure boat is all about. So please do let us know. We always love to hear from you. But in the meantime, that brings podcast 12 to a close. So we look forward to seeing you next week.
Can't wait.